floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning. So I'm Rudy Godon. I'm part of the Microsoft Seattle headquarters. I'm based in Munich, and I'm what is called a time zone lead for cloud computing and technology strategy in Microsoft. So as such, of course, security is very close to my day-to-day work, and the discussion about what governments can do, what regulators should do to increase cloud security is one that is not just happening here, but it's actually one of the top priorities, top concerns around Europe. And basically, what we see is we have this fundamental issue out of history, that in history, cybersecurity used to be a wall. You build a wall around your castle, which is your data, and the threats increase, the risks increase, and you build a bigger wall. First problem is, if someone manages to get inside the wall, then typically the entire city is open. So one of the big questions is this what we would call perimeter security approach actionable and reliable to move into the future? And I would argue in the times of cloud, it is probably not. And secondly, of course, there is not a single data center anymore. There is a set of data centers. There is a combination of your data centers, maybe data centers provided by the government, by telco providers, by Microsoft, Amazon, etc. So how do you secure such a complex construct where it's not possible to build an easy wall around it anymore, and you need to think about how to come up with more complex technologies as well? So what I would argue, and this is probably bad news, you are going to be hacked. And we have this statement, there are two types of companies and government agencies. First type of agency have been hacked. The second type of agency, they have been hacked and they just don't know it. So my advice, and what we hear from all over the world, is assume breach. There is no 100% security. So also from Microsoft, we get hacked every day. Move away from the idea that you can protect your systems and move into a mindset where you need to do three things. The first one is protect as good as possible. But then the second one, detect if someone is inside your system. For the time being, at the moment, the analysis shows that an attacker has up to 200 days in your system until the attacker gets identified. 200 days. And that's a lot of time to steal data, to actually do all sorts of criminal activities. So time to detect an attacker is actually critical. And then the third one, of course, is how you respond to it. So protect, detect, respond. It's three things on the basis that you have to assume that you are under attack right now. And this is an interesting discussion I have with a lot of governments when they turn around and say, hey, we cannot use Microsoft services because you get attacked all the time. And my question back is then, what makes you so sure that you are not attacked? What makes you sure that someone in the East doesn't look at your data centers at the moment to find out what your military information looks like and your infrastructure information looks like? How can you be sure that secret services from governments do not spy on you? So with the fact that threats turn away from the little teenage hacker who sits in the back room trying to break into the system for more the fun or the personal fame, I think we now move into a world where we either deal with organized crime, and we will see much more of that. So identity theft is a big business now. We will see cyber ransom. We will see all sorts of new crime, unfortunately, in the future. But even more importantly, we see industrial espionage. I'm based in Germany, and this is what I hear from my commercial customers in Germany all the time. We see attack patterns from China. How do these guys know where to go? But the fact is, China is doing espionage every day, every minute, on companies that have critical IP in Western and Central Europe. And also, of course, political. So the government in Germany, the parliament was hacked, and all the servers were brought down to an extent that they have to be replaced. The suspicion is that these were either rebels out of eastern Ukraine or even further east. So you see that there are activities that are now institutionalized and executed by governments. How do you respond to this? I would unfortunately have another bad message. This is not a single recipe. You need to think about different dimensions. So when we think about the prevent, detect, respond, you need to think about the user. The user, unfortunately, is the weakest link in many instances. What is your password policy? What is your policy if someone leaves the government? Do you shut down that account and hard delete all the data, or does it stay for a couple of years? The user is in many instances the weakest link because the passwords are not forced to be changed every 3 months, the accounts are not deleted, etc. Then the second topic, and the discussion was on Internet of Things, I would actually go one step back and say, in a mobile world, where is the most vulnerable device these days? It is the smartphone. It is the mobile device. We are pretty good in securing laptops these days and also tablets. But mobile devices offer a huge, huge risk if not protected end to end. So the device is a major security problem. And then last but not least, of course, it's the data. And then the data, the question is it the data inside a data center of a cloud provider or in your data center? Or is the data while it sits on your PC? And again, when you look at the research, it probably indicates that it's not just a problem of the data sitting in your data center. Data theft in PCs, when we look at health information in the UK, it's predominantly based on the local device, that the device gets stolen, the data is taken out there. So you need to have an answer on all of these dimensions. And now when you move into the world of cloud, things become even more complex, because in a traditional architecture where you have your data center and you control all the stack, it's your responsibility. This is where the blue pillar is on-prem. It's all your responsibility. If we assume that you use, let's say, a cloud product like Office 365 from Microsoft, you're on the right side, and suddenly you see the cloud provider having certain security responsibilities in here. So that means not only you buy software from someone like Microsoft, you also need to trust us in that respect, that we carry out our due diligence, our duties in security. So from a security perspective, this new cloud world is not about just a contractual relationship between a cloud provider and you as a customer. This turns into a partnership. From a security perspective, the cloud provider and you as a customer need to partner and need to collaborate. And that is what my work is on a day-to-day basis. This is what my team does for Microsoft. We are running the investments that give you the trust to actually partner with Microsoft, to partner with a cloud provider. And I would not just limit this to Microsoft. I would actually urge you, if you look at any cloud provider, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Dropbox, anyone, ask them a couple of questions, like how do you comply with those ISO standards that actually deal with cybersecurity? How do you comply with ISO 27018? How do you comply with ISO 27001? How do you control the data of your customers in your cloud, dear cloud provider? What do you do in your data centers? How do you protect this data? Give us answers. So the transparency on the security design of software products, the transparency on how data centers are run by a cloud provider are actually extremely critical for you and should be critical for you to make an informed decision whether you can trust that cloud provider or not. However, if you decide not to use a cloud provider, but you use, let's say, your own data center, I would also argue, ask them the same questions. How do you protect the data center? You have to know, because in today's world, if you cannot get an answer from your own internal IT department on what protection measures are taken, and if you don't get information on when attacks happen and when breaches happen, I'm not sure whether your internal entity can be considered as the same level of a trusted partner for an end-to-end security concept. So from a cloud provider perspective as Microsoft, this is a multi-million investment area, and this is actually one of the most critical strategies for us to further harden, to further strengthen our cloud environment in order to also give you a higher level of trust and reliability on our services. We ran with an analyst company a service with CIOs 2 years ago, where we asked CIOs, how do you feel about security with Microsoft as a cloud provider? And the answer was more than 60% said, moving to cloud and moving to Microsoft is probably going to reduce the overall security level of my service. Interestingly enough, a year later, 90% of these CIOs agreed and gave the testimonial that the overall security level increased as an effect of using the cloud. So it was a positive experience, but there were a lot of concerns in the beginning. And that was very interesting to see that, to me, this means it's a complex topic, and to me this means it's nothing you can easily plan for your full business in advance. My recommendation would be start a pilot, try it out, and get hands-on experience with it, with the security impact on the overall service on that operation. To go into the future, one major investment that I would like to share here, and I think it falls in line with the last presentation, we have opened the Digital Crime Center in Brussels a couple of months ago. And what's behind this is basically a center you can, again, collaborate with. We collaborate with the European Union on an EU level. We collaborate with governments. And what this center does, it provides you real-time attack information, threat patterns, malware and botnet information, all the things that the previous speaker talked about. This center will give you in real time from what we see around the planet. So the interesting thing is that we are very transparent, and we want to collaborate with you on where do we see the threats and how can we collaborate to bring these botnets down. And there were a couple of examples in Europe over the last couple of months where Microsoft collaborated with police, with the governments in European countries to take cybercrime, to take botnets down. And this is a major investment I see from Microsoft, where the government of Slovakia can benefit and where you can benefit, because we can get into a one-to-one collaboration on better sharing of threat information, and as a result, detecting and responding to threats in a better and faster way. With that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Thorn. I may avail myself to ask a question concerning this challenging topic, especially trust in the cloud. I may imagine that this challenge is not so big as regards the national environment, because the data is stored still here. However, what comes in cross-border? This is a different dimension, as well, bigger challenge. In May this year, European Commission issued a paper, big one, called Digital Single Market Strategy, and outlined 16 initiatives, one of them including European Cloud Initiative. Commissioner Oettinger and Vice President Ansip reiterated several times that their attempt is to come up with a series of templates of relations between the cloud provider and the cloud user. How do you look at these initiatives, and if you agree as a corporation with the direction European Union in the internal market and the harmonization of internal market is heading to?
Yes, so first statement would be we are in very close contact with Mr. Oettinger as well as the Commission on the digital single market, and are fully backing the idea of A, the digital single market in Europe, and B, the question of digital sovereignty. So digital sovereignty is as such very important. And to that aspect, you need a legal framework and a policy framework in order to govern the data exchange between countries inside the EU, but also govern and protect the movement of data between the European Union and other countries like the US. As Microsoft, I can say, we have not relied on safe harbor. So from that perspective, we have changed to European model clauses and to higher level governing mechanisms a long time ago. And I think we are in line with what the directive of the EU is and what Mr. Oettinger is trying to achieve here. We are working very hard towards that pure and single European digital sovereignty. At the moment, I would say there are certain scenarios, for example, if there is a complete breakdown in data, where we have people from outside Europe looking into data that resides in Europe, but that is governed through the model clauses. That is actually cleared and agreed with the Article 29 working group in the European Union. So we are actually doing all these things in tight collaboration with the European Union. So we are collaborating with Oettinger, and we are trying to understand what it means for our products and services, and how can we come up with our services in a way that they actually are leading the technology providers from the US to come into the European market. So our aim is clearly to be the leading cloud provider to provide cloud services that are in line with the European directive here.
Let me ask you a question from the public. Is there any